Hey guys, today we have an intriguing puzzle that might seem confusing at first glance. But don't worry because I will be your guide as we navigate through this puzzle together. So let's dive right in and try to solve this puzzle. Most people will tend to think that we are playing black in this position, but actually we are playing white and it's white to move and win in this puzzle. Most of you guys will think like, what? That's impossible because as white, we are down 37 points of material at the moment. But if you guys look over here on the left, the engine evaluates this position as plus M8, which means white to move, and white has a checkmate in 8 moves. So first and foremost, we need to look at the setup of the position. A is over here on the left side, and H is over here on the right side. So A on the left and H on the right. Also, most importantly, you have to take a look at the numbers on the side of the board. 1 and 2 is closer to the bottom side of the board, which means that white's pawns were originally over here on A2. So the white pawn has pushed up all the way up the board, and now the white pawns are one step from queening. So similarly, the black's pawns were originally on the 7th rank, and black's pawns has pushed up all the way up over the board, and they are moving downwards to queen on the 1st rank. I know this position looks very weird, which is why I will be constantly reminding you guys about where the pawns are moving throughout this video. So remember, white's pawns are moving up this way to the top, and black's pawns are moving down this way to the bottom. Alright, so let's take a look at the position. As I mentioned earlier, it's white to move, white to play and win, and actually we have as white a checkmate in 8 moves. But we are currently down 37 points of material. So logically speaking, we will want to try and promote these 2 pawns and try to checkmate black's king as soon as possible. But however, if we play some random moves like let's say pawn promote to queen, this actually doesn't do anything because black can just capture our pawn here on b7, check, and attacking our queen as well. If our queen captures, the knight can just capture as the king protect the knight, and we just lost our pawns. Again, a reminder, the pawn does not protect the knight because the pawn is moving down this way along the board. So a move like pawn to a8 promote into a queen doesn't work. So let's try what about this move then. Pawn to b8, promote into queen with check. At first this looks like the move for white, the logical move for white to play, but again it doesn't work because black can play bishop to b7. Check, blocking the check, giving check to white's king instead. If white moves the king here, black has knight to c6 check, double attack, hitting the king and the queen. So if the king moves up to d7 instead, now black can also play the same move, knight to c6, attacking the queen, taking away the d8 square so that white can't play his queen there to give check, so no queen to d8 check, and also the move knight to c6 provides an escape route for the black king. So both pawn move promoting into queen seems like it's not the right idea. So now I want to talk about the approach on how to solve puzzles like this, or puzzles where it's white to play and checkmate in X number of moves. So typically, puzzles like this, what you need to look for are forcing moves, and the simplest forcing move to give is a check. So why is check a forcing move? Because if let's say you give your opponent check, let's say over here we give check with the queen, black either has to move his king, he has to block the check with any piece, or if possible, another piece would have to capture this queen, which is giving check to the king. So there's only 3 options, and you can't play any either move, for example, let's say pushing up your pawn, because that's illegal as your king is in check, which is why this is called a forcing move, because it forces yourself or your opponent, basically the person in check, to do something about the check since your king is under attack. So my tip for you guys in positions like this, or even tactical puzzles and checkmating puzzles, is to always look for forcing move that starts with a check. Sometimes a check can be a whole rook sacrifice for nothing, or even a queen sacrifice for a pawn, something like that, something absurd. It may not seem like the most logical move, but it might be the correct move in that position because it gives check. So watch out for all these types of checks, because most of the time, by finding the correct check, you'll be able to solve the puzzle. But before we delve deeper into this puzzle, I'd like to take a moment and ask for your support. If you're finding the content enjoyable and want to see more videos like this, please smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. It helps us create more amazing chess videos for you. So if you're ready, let's continue unraveling this puzzle together. I would say the first two moves to this puzzle are the most difficult ones. So as I mentioned earlier, we should look for checks, which are forcing moves in puzzles like this. However, pawn up, promote into queen check doesn't work due to bishop block, as shown earlier. So now you might think, alright, so let's say pawn up, promote into rook to give check. But that's just the same thing because the bishop can block and the end result will be the same. So that doesn't work. So what else can give check in this position? Or how else do we give check in this position as white? And a very hard to see move would be pawn to a8, promote into knight, giving check. And here, black has two options. He can play king to a7 or king to c6. Another gentle reminder, the white's pawns are moving up this way and the black's pawns are moving down this way, because 1 is over here at the bottom and 8 is over here at the top. So this pawn doesn't control the c6 square at all. Alright, so if king to a7, this is just checkmate as we just promote into a queen and the king has no more moves. So black's king has to go to the right to c6. Again, a reminder, the pawns are going this way instead, so the king is not in check. So now the second key move here is to find checks. However, if we just promote into a queen, this would not be a check and this doesn't threaten black king at all. So the only way to give check in this position is again to push up and to promote into knight instead, giving check. Now the king has only one move to go to d5, and again we keep up the idea of looking for forcing moves to give check. The only checks we can give in this position are knight to b6 check or knight to c7 check. And it should be very clear to see that knight to b6 doesn't work because black can just capture. So it has to be knight to c7 check then. Again, a reminder, black's pawns are going down this way, so black is not attacking the knight at all. Also, the knight here on c7 will control this square, so since the knight controls this square as well, the king is forced to move to e5. Only move. Same concept, look for forcing moves. Knight to c6 doesn't work because black's knight and bishop controls this square. So it has to be knight to d7 check. Again, the king is forced. He can't go here because of the knight. He can't go here because of the knight as well. And he can't go to f6 because of the other knight. So only one move, king to f4. And now it should be clear that knight to d5 check doesn't work because the bishop defends. So it has to be knight to e6 check. King is forced to g4 as the squares are controlled by the knights. So again, we follow it up by knight to f6 check. So you guys can see there's some sort of a pattern with the movements of the knight, or the knight can be seen as they're dancing as they move together and give check the black king while controlling key squares on the board. But however, here after king to h3, which is the only move for black, now we're faced with a critical decision. Do we give check here on c4? Or do we follow the pattern to give check on g5 over here? Because previously, our knights were kind of moving in a similar pattern, right? They just give check, 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 always checking this way to the right. So here we have two checks and both checks are not threatened by any of black's pieces because again, pawns are moving down this way, so the pawns do not control these two squares at all. And we have an option between those two checks and we need to find the right check. So if you guys remember earlier on when the knights were giving check, not only the knights were giving check, but they were controlling key squares to prevent the king from escaping as well. So if we use the same logic in this move, so same idea, knight give check, controlling the key square. We need to figure out which square to go to deliver the checkmate. So let's see. If we play knight to g5 check, now the king actually has two options to go. And if the king goes over here, or even over to h2, it seems like we have no more checks to give and the king can just escape. So it should be very clear that the move is knight to f4 check, forcing the king to the only move, which is to h2, as the knight controls these two squares. So after king to h2, now comes the final check and the finishing blow, knight to g4 checkmate. Again, just a gentle reminder, 1 is on the bottom of the board and 8 is at the top. So black's pawns are moving in this direction and they do not threaten to capture the knight at all. Alright, so just a quick recap on this puzzle. Let's just go back to the start and see how do we solve this puzzle again from the start. So like I said, normally in puzzles like this, a pro tip would to be looking for forcing moves which are usually giving check. So if we promote to a queen or a rook to give check, black can just block with the bishop and then knight comes here to c6 and then the king escapes. So this doesn't work, and which lets us to find the move pawn to a8, promote into knight giving check, king is forced to the right side, and then same idea, pawn up, promote into a knight giving check. And then after that, it's quite easy as our knight follows a pattern and it looks like our knights are dancing with the enemy king, giving check while controlling important squares on the board until we reach this position where we have two options of giving check over here or over here, and we need to find the right one, which is knight to f4 check, controlling the b7 square as well so that the king can't run, and after king to h2, knight to b4 is checkmate. And that concludes our exploration of this mind-boggling puzzle. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more exciting chess content. Share your experience in the comments below. Did you enjoy this puzzle, or how did you find this puzzle? Thanks for watching, and we see you in the next video.